as Chef of the Year. Here's a fascinating treatment of a Mexican crepe dessert.
This dish that we're making with goat's milk that's slowly cooked until it turns a beautiful rich caramel color is very typical of Western Mexican kind of cooking, where they have lots of goats, lots of dairy cattle, and they make a lot of things with them that are meant to hold over for a long period of time. And there they make this dish in enormous casos, these great big copper cauldrons that they put over enormous wood fires and let simmer for hours and hours and hours. At home you can make it with a quart of goat milk. Now this is something that's going to cook down a lot, so that out of a quart you'll only get about a cup and a half or so of the finished cajeta. But I've brought the goat milk, the quart of goat milk, to a simmer here, and when it does hit a good boil, I'm going to stir in a cup of sugar. Goat milk, by the way, is becoming quite readily available in a lot of the supermarkets, and in fact, if you can't find it easily in a supermarket, you can always get it in a health food store. And then there's a little sort of chemical trick that goes on here. We have some soda, baking soda, that's dissolved in water, and I'm going to add that to this. And when we add it, it will neutralize some of the acid in that goat milk. And sometimes it'll foam way up, and you'll feel like you're doing one of those childhood experiments with vinegar and baking soda. That's only if your goat milk has a lot of acid in it. Then we'll set the temperature on this until it will simmer very nicely, but not risk boiling up and bubbling over. And it'll take about 45 minutes or something around that amount of time, depending on exactly what your flame is like. Actually, the slower that you boil it, the better. And when it's to the point that it has a golden color, I'm going to show you, grab a dry towel here, I'm going to show you what one looks like that has been boiling for some time. It's got this beautiful rich color, and what you see floating around in there is what we're about ready to add to our other pot. It's these big cinnamon sticks. Now this is true cinnamon. This is the cinnamon that they use so much in Mexico that has a very different flavor than the cinnamon that we find here.
The mixture is strained.
To that finished cajeta, we're going to stir in a little bit of rum. You could leave that out if you want. This would be called cajeta envinada. Sherry or some grain neutral alcohol. So just to stir in a bit of that. And now it's ready to use. As I said, and I will underscore, the slower the cooking on this, the better always.
Pecans and brown butter are used in presentation. The flavored butter is painted onto crepes.
Now just using a small amount of this browned butter from the pecans with the crepe with its most beautiful side down, we're going to brush a bit of butter over it and then drizzle a bit of cajeta and spread that nicely. This will kind of just lightly film the inside of it. Now a little more butter, a little more cajeta, and again a last little brush of butter, and it'll go into a dish where we already have a number of these folded and ready to be drizzled completely with that cajeta. Now I'm going to pour it directly out of this. It'll be the easiest way for us to make sure that they're all nicely coated. You can see what a luscious treat this would be for dessert. You know, it's not any caramelized sugar that's going on when you make or caramelizing of sugar that's going on when you make the cajeta itself, but instead a caramelization of the milk sugars. So it has a very different flavor and a very different consistency than regular caramel sauce. We'll save these these pecans to sprinkle over it as soon as it comes out of the oven. And take some of these toasted pecans and sprinkle over the top. Some people like to serve this also with some of those plantains, the cooking bananas in their very ripe state, then butter fried so that they're kind of almost, shall we say, kind of gooey in their texture when they're very, very ripe, and put those over the top of it as well. And you've got, I think, probably one of the classiest and one of the most beautiful and tasty dishes in the Mexican dessert repertoire, the crepas con cajeta with toasted pecans sprinkled over the top.